Hey everyone, and welcome to Dating Decoded. I am Frank.
And I'm Rosalina. So excited to be here, Frank. This is our very first episode together on Dating Decoded, and our first episode full stop. I'm absolutely thrilled to dive into some really fun topics with you.
Yep, it's great to get behind the mic. I've been looking forward to it.
Definitely. And for our inaugural episode, we're kicking things off with something that, well, it might sound a little bit out there to some, but it's incredibly practical for guys looking to really drive up their game and their confidence. We're talking about our fresh take on the top 5 day game tips.
Yeah, you heard that right. Day game. And don't let the name throw you off, because these aren't just for, specific types of interactions. These are really just brilliant insights that help you navigate pretty much any social situation with a whole lot more confidence.
Absolutely. It's about enhancing your general social skills, whether you're meeting new people for networking, making friends, or yes, even in dating contexts. We think these 5 tips, though some might be seen as a little unconventional, are super effective.
They really are, and we're going to break each one down, share some of our own experiences and observations, and hopefully give you some actionable takeaways that you can start using today. So buckle up, it's going to be a fun ride.
Let's do it.
All right, so kicking things off with our very first day game tip, and this one I think might surprise a few people. Rosalina, want to do the honors?
I do. So day game tip number 1 is read fiction, or, just read diverse books in general.
I can already hear people in their cars like, wait, what? I thought this was about dating and social skills, not like book club recommendations.
Right? It sounds so academic almost, doesn't it? But trust me, this is actually incredibly practical. The idea here is that by engaging with a really wide range of books, and yes, the prompt even mentions things like, Steve Jobs' biography and Harry Potter, you vastly expand your conversational repertoire.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard this tip, I was like, really? That's what we're going with? But then you think about it and it's brilliant. Like, how many times have you been in a conversation and you're fishing for something to talk about? You're trying to connect with someone and the well just feels dry.
Oh, tell me about it. Especially if you're meeting someone new, you want to make a good impression, but you're thinking, what do we even talk about? And that's where this comes in. If you're reading about different cultures, different histories, different fantasy worlds, you just have so many more entry points. You're never going to run out of topics.
Exactly. It's not just about having facts, though. It's about developing verbal versatility, which is, a fancy way of saying you can talk about anything with anyone. You pick up new vocabulary, new ways of expressing ideas. And it's not like you're going to recite a plot summary of Moby Dick on a first encounter, hopefully.
No, please don't. Unless, of course, the other person is also super into classic literature, then by all means, go for it. But it's more subtle than that. It's about being able to make connections, to draw parallels, to understand different perspectives. If you've read a historical biography, you might be able to comment on current events with more insight. If you've read a fantasy novel, you might have a better grasp of storytelling or imaginative thinking.
And I think I remember talking to one of the guys who really popularized some of these ideas, actually. And he was saying it's less about remembering specific details and more about the mindset it cultivates. It's about curiosity. It's about being able to engage with complex ideas, which then translates into how you engage with people.
That's so true. It's like you're training your brain to be interesting. You're filling your internal library, if you will. And people, whether they consciously realize it or not, are attracted to that depth. They're attracted to someone who has, a rich inner world.
It makes you a better storyteller, too. Think about it. The best conversationalists are often the best storytellers. And reading, especially fiction, is essentially experiencing stories from different perspectives. So you naturally start to pick up on narrative structures, on how to build intrigue, on how to keep someone engaged.
Oh, that's such a good point. And it's not just about formal stories, but even just like sharing anecdotes. How you frame something that happened to you, how you build up to the punchline, or how you make it relatable. All that verbal versatility really comes from exposure to different kinds of language and narrative.
And I've personally seen this play out so many times. People who are well-read, they carry themselves differently. There's a certain confidence that comes from knowing you have something valuable to contribute to any conversation. You don't feel that panic of, oh my God, what am I going to say next?
Yeah, it takes the pressure off because even if the immediate topic isn't something you've read about directly, the act of reading has wired your brain to think broadly, to connect disparate ideas, and that's priceless in social interactions. Honestly, this might be my favorite unexpected tip.
I think it's one of the most foundational, actually, because it impacts so much of your internal state, not just your external output. It's like a cheat code for intellectual curiosity.
It really is. And, people might still be thinking, but what if I'm not a reader? And that's fine. It's about the exposure to diverse ideas. Audiobooks, documentaries, really thoughtful podcasts. Though, obviously, not this one.
Not this one, no. But no, you're right. It's about consuming information in a way that broadens your horizons. It's about being genuinely interested in the world, and that interest is contagious. People want to talk to people who are interested in things.
Exactly. So, for anyone out there, before you even think about approaching someone or going on a date, grab a book or an audiobook. You'd be surprised how much of a difference it makes.
All right, so moving on from expanding our minds with books, let's dive into day game tip number 2. And this one might ruffle a few feathers, or at least challenge some deeply held beliefs.
Oh, I know exactly which one you're talking about. Frank, you want to drop the bombshell?
I do. Day game tip number 2 is looks don't matter.
Oh, the collective gasp I can hear from our listeners right now. What? Are you serious?
Right? But Frank, Rosalina, I spend 2 hours at the gym every day. I bought this expensive cologne. My hair's perfect. And we're here to tell you it's not the primary driver, or at least it's vastly overrated in the long run.
It really is. And I think when we say looks don't matter, it's not like don't shower, don't put effort into your appearance. Of course, take care of yourself. But the core message here, based on, what we've observed and what the source materials for these tips also emphasize, is that confidence and personality significantly outweigh physical attributes like height, handsomeness, all those things that people get so fixated on.
Yeah, I mean, so many guys, they get hung up on, oh, I'm not tall enough, or I don't have a six-pack, or my jawline isn't chiseled enough. And while those things might, offer a fleeting initial glance, they don't hold someone's attention. They don't build rapport. They don't create attraction that actually lasts beyond, the first 3 seconds.
Exactly. What actually builds attraction and what makes someone truly magnetic is their confidence, their energy, their personality. It's how they carry themselves, how they interact, how they make you feel. And, we've seen this time and time again, observing, as the prompt says, client patterns. It's a recurring theme.
Yeah, it's almost like a statistical anomaly, right? You see someone who, by conventional standards, might not be considered classically handsome or, a supermodel, but they walk into a room and they just own it. They have this undeniable charisma, and people gravitate towards them. They want to talk to them. They want to be around them. And it's never about the symmetrical face or the height.
Never. I mean, think about some of the most charming people you know. Are they all like Greek gods and goddesses? Probably not. What makes them charming is their wit, their ability to listen, their genuine interest in others, their sense of humor. That's personality. And then the confidence to actually express that personality.
It's like confidence is the amplifier for whatever traits you do have. If you're witty, confidence makes that wit shine. If you're a good listener,
Confidence allows you to genuinely engage without worrying about what to say next. It's the foundation.
It really is. And I think, too, when people are overly focused on their looks, it can actually have a negative effect because they become like self-conscious. They're constantly checking their reflection or worried about how they're perceived physically, and that pulls them out of the moment. It makes them less present, less engaging.
You know, you see that a lot. The person who's too busy posing or trying to look cool, and they miss the actual human connection. Whereas someone who's just comfortable in their own skin, maybe even a little bit goofy, but they're there and engaged, they're always going to be more attractive. Always.
Oh, 100%. And a lot of what we talk about, some of these ideas, they can sometimes be seen as controversial or, a bit edgy. But this particular point about confidence and personality over superficial traits, I think is universally applicable and profoundly true. It's not just for dating. It's for job interviews, for making friends, for anything where you need to connect with people.
Absolutely. It's about your internal state dictating your external reality, right? If you genuinely believe you're interesting, if you believe you have something to offer, if you believe you're worthy of someone's attention, that belief radiates outwards. And people pick up on that. It's not about being arrogant. It's about genuine self-assurance.
Yeah, it's not bravado. It's not puffing out your chest. It's just a calm, settled feeling that I'm okay, I'm good, I'm comfortable being me. And that, I think, is the most attractive quality anyone can possess, regardless of, how tall they are or what their hair looks like.
I remember one of the authors who wrote quite extensively on these topics, he always used to say, focus on being interesting, not on being interested. And while that sounds a little bit counterintuitive.
Yeah, it does.
What he meant was, if you are interesting, if you cultivate that rich inner world that we talked about with reading, if you have a personality that you're confident to express, then people will naturally be interested in you. You don't have to chase their interest. It becomes an organic process.
That's so true. It's like people can tell when you're genuinely comfortable in your own skin and when you're just putting on an act. And the comfort, the authenticity is what draws people in. So for anyone listening, seriously, stop worrying so much about the mirror. Start focusing on what's inside.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, good hygiene is still paramount. But beyond that, it really does become secondary to that inner game. The confidence, the humor, the wit, the kindness, the ability to connect, those are the superpowers.
They really are. And it's so liberating, isn't it? To realize that you don't have to fit into some kind of, stereotypical beauty ideal to be attractive. You just have to be authentically you with confidence.
It's empowering. So to recap, day game tip number 2, looks don't matter. Focus on your confidence, focus on your personality, and let that be the magnetic force.
Okay, Frank, we've talked about filling our minds with books, and we've talked about the power of confidence over physical looks. Now, are you ready for day game tip number 3? Because this one is definitely going to raise some eyebrows.
I'm ready. I think our listeners are probably bracing themselves after the looks don't matter one. All right, day game tip number 3 is avoid morning masturbation.
I told you that one would be a head scratcher for some people.
I mean, it is. It's definitely not what you expect to hear in a dating advice podcast, right? People are probably thinking, wait, what does that have to do with anything?
Exactly. But there's a rationale behind it, and it's quite interesting once you peel back the layers.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone, thinking this is some kind of moral judgment or anything like that, it's really not. This tip is purely pragmatic. It's about energy management.
It really is. The idea here, stemming from some pretty well-known authors in the field, is that you're preserving your, let's call it, sexual energy or your natural drive and redirecting that focus and motivation towards actual socializing and connecting with others.
Right. Instead of expending that internal drive, that kind of primal masculine energy alone, you save it, you accumulate it, and then you channel it outwards when you're actually out there in the world interacting with people. It's about, having that kind of inner fire to engage.
It's almost like not letting off steam prematurely, if that makes sense. You want that pressure to build up a little so that when you do go out, you're more motivated, you're more driven to actually approach, to interact, to push through any social friction.
Yeah, and I think it also helps with presence, right? Because if you've already, fulfilled that biological urge, there can sometimes be a dip in your motivation to go out and connect, whereas if you've preserved it, there's this natural, almost instinctive pull to seek out social interaction, to engage with, in this context, women.
It's like having a full tank of gas before a long road trip instead of, running on fumes. You want to be at your peak energetically when you're stepping out to meet new people. And this is just one of those, albeit unconventional, ways to ensure that.
And it's not just about like physical energy. I think it's also mental and emotional energy. When you avoid that particular morning habit, you often feel more mentally clear, more focused, less prone to brain fog, which, let's be honest, is not great when you're trying to have a witty conversation.
Oh, for sure. You want to be sharp, you want to be quick on your feet, and if you're, feeling a bit sluggish or distracted, that's definitely going to impact your ability to be present and engaging. It's about optimizing your state.
Yeah, it's about optimizing your state for sure. And I remember one time I was talking to one of the guys who really popularized this idea, and he was like, look, it's not about morality, it's about efficacy. Do you want to be effective when you're out there, or do you want to be half-hearted? And it just clicked for me. Like, okay, that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's a very practical, results-oriented approach. And, while it might sound a bit extreme to some, especially if they've never heard of such a concept, the reasoning behind it is actually quite logical when you think about human drives and how we channel our energy.
It's really about understanding your own psychology and physiology. Your body and mind have certain drives. And if you proactively decide where to direct those drives, you gain a massive advantage. You're not just letting things happen, you're making them happen.
Exactly. It's about intentionality. And I think that's a theme that runs through a lot of these tips, right? Being intentional about how you present yourself, how you interact, and even how you manage your own internal state.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things where, it's not for everybody, and some people might try and say, nah, that doesn't really affect me, but for a lot of guys, and based on the patterns we've seen, it genuinely makes a difference in their motivation and their ability to stay in interactions longer.
It's the bit like, an athlete preparing for a big game. They're not just like showing up. They're doing specific things to get themselves into peak physical and mental condition. This is just another, admittedly unusual, facet of that preparation.
Absolutely. So, while it sounds a little out there, day game tip number 3, avoid morning masturbation. Try it. See how it impacts your day, your energy, and your drive to engage with the world. You might be surprised.
You really might. And if nothing else, it'll make for a good story later, right?
I certainly will. And that leads us perfectly into day game tip number 4, which is, I think, a lot more commonly discussed, but still incredibly important. And that is use Kino or touch.
Yes. Kino. This is a big one, Frank. I mean, we're not talking about anything, inappropriate here. Let's make that super clear right off the bat.
Oh, absolutely not. No, we're talking about appropriate, non-creepy physical touch. Think like a handshake, right? Or a light tap on the arm.
Yeah, we are. I mean, think about it. If you're talking to someone and they're just completely still, no gestures, no slight touches, it can almost feel impersonal, right? Like there's a wall between you.
Totally. And that's what we call, in this context, the no contact mistake. It's when you have an entire conversation with someone and there's absolutely no physical interaction whatsoever. No handshake when you meet, no incidental contact, and it just keeps things in this very, very platonic, often sterile zone.
Yeah. It keeps you in friend zone territory almost immediately because there's no sense of breaking that intimacy barrier. And touch it's such a powerful way to convey warmth, confidence, and even subtly a different kind of intent beyond just being, polite acquaintances.
It's like a signal. A handshake says, I'm open, I'm friendly, I'm here. And a gentle touch on the arm when you're laughing at a joke or sharing a story, it's a way of saying, we're connecting. There's a bond forming here. And it's subconscious, but it's incredibly powerful.
It really is. I mean, you can tell a lot about a person by their handshake, for example. A firm, confident handshake versus a limp, weak one. It immediately sets a tone.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember, I think it was Mystery, actually, who used to talk about like 3 stages of Kino, starting with very light, almost accidental touch, then a bit more, and then, eventually leading to more comfortable, sustained contact. It's a progression.
Yeah, it's a gradual escalation, and it's all about comfort and reciprocation, right? You're not just like grabbing someone's arm out of nowhere. You're testing the waters, you're seeing how they respond to that subtle physical connection.
Exactly. It's about calibrating. And if someone pulls away, you back off. But it's about making that attempt and not being afraid to establish that human connection on a physical level in an appropriate way. Because so many people are just too scared to touch at all.
They are. They're so afraid of being perceived as, creepy or overstepping boundaries that they just avoid it entirely. And then they wonder why their interactions feel cold or why they're not progressing beyond superficial conversation.
Right, and it's because they're missing a key ingredient. That physical dimension adds so much to the interaction. It adds comfort, it adds attraction, it builds trust, it makes the other person feel more at ease with you.
And it creates a memory, too, almost, a deeper sensory memory of the interaction. It's not just words, it's also a feeling. And that's really what you're aiming for, especially in day game, when you're meeting someone for the first time. You want to create a positive, multi-sensory experience.
Yeah, and I think it also helps with your own confidence, too. When you're comfortable initiating appropriate touch, it projects a certain level of self-assurance. You're not like tiptoeing around. You're comfortable in your own skin, and that's attractive.
Oh, for sure. It shows you're grounded, you're present, and it's not about being forceful. It's about being natural, just like you would with a good friend. You might pat them on the back or, a brief touch on the shoulder when you're making a point. It's that kind of organic interaction we're talking about.
Yeah, like if you're telling a funny story and you lightly touch someone's arm as you deliver the punchline. It enhances the connection. It creates a shared moment that goes beyond just the verbal.
It does. It absolutely does. And I think this is one of those tips that, while it sounds simple, actually takes a little bit of practice to get comfortable with, especially if you're not naturally a very touchy-feely person.
That's true. It can feel awkward at first, but like anything else, the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes, and you start to see the difference it makes in how people respond to you.
So to summarize, day game tip number 4, don't be afraid to use appropriate, non-creepy touch. It's a really powerful tool for building rapport, attraction, and trust, and it definitely counters that very common no-contact mistake.
Absolutely. So we've talked about reading, we've talked about looks, we've talked about redirecting energy and using appropriate touch. All of these things, I think, feed into our final tip, day game tip number 5, which is perhaps the most practical and also the most challenging. Never run out of things to say.
Oh, the holy grail, the ultimate fear for so many people, right? That awkward silence, that moment where your mind just goes completely blank.
Yeah, it's the nightmare scenario. You've approached, you've said your opener, and then silence. You're standing there looking at each other and it's just crickets. And that's usually when, what we call ejection happens. They find an excuse to leave.
Oh, yes. The polite, "It was nice meeting you. I have to go now." That means, please make this stop. And I think for a lot of people, this is where they get tripped up, even if they've managed to initiate.
Exactly. So the key to never running out of things to say based on, all the experience and teachings we've seen, it really boils down to one simple yet incredibly difficult thing: gaining massive field experience.
Massive field experience. I mean, it sounds intense, right? Like you're going into battle, but really it just means practice. A lot of it.
A lot of it. Like an almost absurd amount for some people initially. It means putting yourself out there consistently, day after day, week after week, and just having conversations with as many different people as possible. Not necessarily with an agenda, but just to build that conversational muscle.
Yeah, it's like building up your conversational stamina. Because when you're starting out, every interaction feels high stakes, right? And you're so focused on yourself, on what you're going to say next, that it's hard to be present. But the more you do it, the more automatic it becomes.
Totally. It's like learning to ride a bike. At first you're wobbling, you're thinking about every pedal stroke, every turn of the handlebars, but after a while you just ride. You're not even consciously thinking about it. Conversations become like that.
That's a great analogy, Frank. And it's true. When you have that experience, you're not scrambling for topics. You're just listening. You're noticing things. You're drawing on those diverse books you've read, those unique perspectives you've cultivated. It all just flows.
It does. And the beauty of massive field experience is that it desensitizes you to the fear of rejection, which is a big part of why people run out of things to say. They're so scared of saying the wrong thing that they say nothing at all.
Right. Or they say something super generic because they're playing it safe. And that leads to those awkward silences because there's nowhere to go with, "So, nice weather, huh?"
Exactly. And with field experience, you realize that, hey, if a conversation dies, it's not the end of the world. It's just a data point. It's another rep in the gym. And you learn subtly what works and what doesn't.
And you also learn to pivot, right? If one topic isn't landing, you've got 5 more in your back pocket because you've practiced engaging in so many different ways. You learn how to bridge topics, how to ask open-ended questions, how to just keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, it's about building that conversational flow. And I remember one of the guys, I think it was Neil, talking about how he would literally just walk up to 10 different strangers a day and try to have a 5-minute conversation. Even if it went nowhere, it was just for the reps.
That's intense, but I can see the logic, doesn't it? It takes the pressure off any single interaction, doesn't it? Because you know you're just doing your daily quota. It's not about success or failure in that moment. It's about the cumulative practice.
Exactly. And it helps you develop what's often called situational awareness, too. You become better at picking up on cues, reading body language, understanding what the other person is interested in, and then tailoring your conversation to that.
Absolutely. Because you can't just have a script, can you? You can't just memorize lines. Real conversations are dynamic. And that's what this field experience gives you, the ability to be truly present and adapt in real time.
It's like, when you're starting out, you might have like 3 topics you can talk about. After a month of dedicated field experience, you'll have 30. After a year, it's limitless because you've encountered so many different people, so many different situations, so many different reactions.
And you've also built up a library of your own stories, haven't you? Because you've been living, you've been experiencing things, you've been interacting. Your life becomes richer, and that in turn makes you a more interesting conversationalist.
Yeah. And it really addresses that fear of ejection after initial approaches. Because if you're good at maintaining conversations, people don't want to leave. They want to keep talking to you. You become the magnet.
It's true, and it builds resilience too. Because you will have conversations that don't go anywhere. You will have people who aren't interested. But with that massive field experience, it just rolls off your back. It's not a personal failure. It's just, okay, next one.
Exactly. It's just part of the process. And that mental toughness, that resilience, is just as important as the actual words you say. Because if you crumble after one awkward silence, you'll never get anywhere.
So, for anyone listening who struggles with those conversational lulls or that fear of running out of things to say, the answer is deceptively simple. Get out there, talk to people, practice, and don't be afraid to fail, because every failure is just a lesson learned.
Yep. Gain that massive field experience. It's the ultimate hack for conversational flow and avoiding those dreaded awkward silences. It truly is about volume and consistent effort.
Wow, Frank, what a journey we've been on in our very first episode. We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we?
We really have, Rosalina. And for our listeners, just to quickly recap these top 5 day game tips we've discussed. First off, we had read fiction, which, we said it's about expanding your mind and your conversational topics.
Yeah, it's about being interesting, right? Having that rich inner world to draw from. And then we moved on to looks don't matter, which is a big one. It's really about prioritizing confidence and personality over superficial physical traits.
Absolutely. It's that inner game that really shines through. And then we had the slightly more unconventional one, avoid morning masturbation, or as we framed it, redirecting that vital energy towards social interactions and connecting with others.
Yes, channeling that drive. And then we talked about use Kino, or touch, which is so important for building that non-creepy, natural connection and trust, avoiding that common mistake of staying too distant.
Yeah, the appropriate touch. And finally, our last tip, which really ties everything together, never run out of things to say, which boils down to gaining that massive field experience, just getting out there and practicing.
Exactly. It's all about consistency and building those conversational muscles. It's been a really fun discussion, Frank. I hope our listeners are feeling a bit more equipped, maybe a bit more confident to navigate their own social interactions out there.
I hope so too. These tips, while some might seem a bit out there, they really do form a coherent framework for building genuine confidence and connection. And it's all about putting yourself out there.
It really is. And on that note, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who tuned in to our very first episode of Dating Decoded. It's been fun doing this with you, Frank.
Same here, Rosalina. It's been fantastic, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed our conversation today, please make sure to subscribe to Dating Decoded wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, please hit that like button and remember to turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode.
Yes, and leave us your comments too. We're interested in hearing if you've tried and tested any of the tips covered today. It really helps us out. We've got so much more to share with you, so many more insights to decode.
Yep, we'll be following this up in a future episode with more day game tips, so please don't miss it. From Rosalina and myself, Frank, thank you for joining us on Dating Decoded. We'll catch you next time.